Okay, I think people are joining, so we'll let people trickle in before we get started. Okay, well, in the interest of time, we'll just get started with some introductions about who we are and what this info session will be about, or Q&A. So my name is Jennifer Zhang, and I am a second year in the MPH 65 program with a concentration in health management. I'm from California, and I worked in healthcare research before coming to Chan. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Sham.
Hello everyone, I'm Sham. I am currently in my second year Master of Science in Global Health and Population at Chan. I'm focusing most of my studies and my academic pursuits on like early childhood development and child protection and conflict and humanitarian settings. I'm originally from Syria. I moved here approximately 10 years ago, and I completed my undergraduate studies at Cornell University almost a year and a half ago, and graduated with a bachelor's in development sociology. So nice to meet you all.
I'm Sarah. I'm currently a second year biostatistics SM student. I'm in the SM60, so this is my last semester. Before coming to Chan, I was at UNC Chapel Hill. I also did biostatistics there, and I grew up in Charlotte, so originally from North Carolina. And um, yeah, I think you didn't already say this, Jennifer, right? But as people have questions, you can just pop them in the chat and we'll go through them as they come to us.
Mhm.
Um,
And I think we
so
also have a list of questions that were
mhm.
submitted. Um, so the first one here that we have while we're waiting for some questions to pop into the chat, as a prospective student, what factors did you consider when deciding which programs to apply to?
I guess I can just briefly start. I guess I considered programs that like the program focus, research opportunities and faculty expertise and how well the program aligned with my career goals. I also looked at, so for me, it was global health and population. I looked at the program support for, um, um, you know, um, networking opportunities and um, research opportunities and things like that. So that was like one thing that I took into um, considered.
Yeah, I think I would definitely say that I considered a lot of the same things. I specifically looked at the design of the curriculum as well. So, like, what courses are included in the curriculum, as well as um, Harvard Chan does like applied practice experience or practicum, which I thought would be a really cool way to get hands-on experience, as well as the length of the program, which is a little bit unique. It's 3 semesters long, which is a cool intermediate between 2 semester versus 2 year program. Another thing that I did consider was the location. So Boston is a really rich place to be in terms of public health and health in general. It's really at the forefront of like things that are going on in the health space here in the United States. So that was another thing to consider.
Yeah, I think I considered a lot of the same things as you guys. It was one of the only programs I applied to that was 1.5 years. Personally, I'm just trying to go into industry, so I was really looking for something that was kind of like an accelerated program. I already had a biostats background, so this program also offered a lot of flexibility in terms of the courses that we take outside of like the four-ish required classes. And then I think location was one of the biggest ones for me as well, because there's so many biotech, pharma, hospitals here, like basically anything you could want for like a career in biostats is here. So it was really ideal.
Great. And then if there's any follow-up questions to anything we said, feel free to drop them in the chat. But we're gonna move on to the next question that we have here. I think we touched a bit on a few of these questions, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go to as a student, what are some opportunities that you have taken advantage of or look forward to pursuing, for example, cross-registering at another school, elective coursework, etc.? And I can get started. I actually haven't cross-registered in my time here at Chan, but I know that it is a very popular thing to do amongst Chan students. The process is a little bit complicated, but you'll definitely learn more about it once you get here. But it's a cool way to kind of get exposure to different schools, different teaching styles, and different materials. And it's definitely very popular that people will cross-register at MIT, at Tufts, at Harvard Business School, Kennedy School, the law school, even the School of Education. So it's definitely been really cool for a lot of my colleagues that are cross-registering. As for other opportunities that I've taken advantage of, I would say the faculty here are really helpful in terms of connections, networking, and advice. So definitely the faculty have been super like supportive and super invested in us as people, so that's been really awesome.
I can go next. I've had the privilege to be involved in like several opportunities on campus. Some of the most impactful have been through my participation in um, the Maternal and Child Health Leadership Lab, or I'm also pursuing a humanitarian studies concentration, where both of those experiences have allowed me to work closely with mentors who are leaders in global health and the field that I'm currently pursuing, and have helped me refine my research focus and approach to my thesis. So I found that pretty helpful. I've also like tailored my coursework to align with my interests in like early childhood development and humanitarian response. I've chosen like several electives on campus that are focused on mixed methods research, mental health, child protection, all of which have provided me with like the skills and theoretical knowledge to design or to research effective like um, interventions on like vulnerable populations. I have also not explored the cross registration yet, but I do know several people within my degree program who have taken advantage of that opportunity to, for instance, they've taken classes at Harvard Kennedy School to broaden their understandings of like policy and program design, and just get like an exposure to cross-disciplinary fields. Yeah, also I'm actively involved in the first generation mentorship program on campus, which was recently launched this year. So I mentor other first gen students and providing guidance and navigating their own academic and career paths here at Chan. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But on to you, Sarah.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add, and I'll try to go quick because I see that we're getting some questions now through the Q&A. But yeah, I also haven't cross-registered. It is super, super popular, especially within the biostats department, to cross-register at MIT because they have so many course offerings in computer science and machine learning. And it's really encouraged to do that, especially if you're in health data science. It's kind of even a requirement that you take some type of computational class outside of the department. So I haven't done it, but it is super popular, really not like a super hard process. So if you're interested in it, I think that's a great thing to consider as you're applying. And I know someone asked when we were talking about the first question for things that we considered and what drew us to Chan a little bit. Personally, those were things I considered even in the application process. I think it's really helpful to narrow down between like all of the programs that are available to you to consider things like that early on. But it's also things that once you're admitted and trying to narrow down that I think were kind of like the final deciding factors. Um, I think Sean and Jennifer probably agree with that, it's good to start thinking about those things now and making that decision before you actually submit your application of if all of those things align with what you're really interested in to save money too. Applications are not cheap.
Should we go ahead and just start going through the questions, I guess?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, the first question is, as a current student, what professional organizations have you been connected to that align with your chosen career choices?
That's an interesting question. I'm wondering what in context, I mean, a lot of people do the practicums with professional organizations that align with their career choices. All of us are not graduated yet, so I'm sure we're like in the midst of our job hunt or like looking for professional organizations, but there's definitely a lot of opportunity through faculty, especially to and like other students even to connect with professional organizations. I know here in Boston, a lot of people did work with the local hospitals in the Longwood medical area, like Boston Children's, Brigham, Mass General, and even like across the country, like we have info sessions with like Kaiser Permanente or the CDC, like there everyone is like happy to do an info session at Harvard, which is part of the benefit that you kind of get from the prestige that the Harvard name holds. There's a lot of really cool guest lectures and most of the lectures that I've been in, and they always are great networking opportunities as well, where they'll usually like provide their email for follow-up questions, or you can just go up to them and talk to them after class ends. But um, specifically over the summer, we had people working for like Banat Consulting, health management consultants. We had Takeda, the pharmaceutical company, Bayer also for pharmaceutical companies like Costello, which is like a health economics consulting company. So it's quite a wide range and it's a great resource to network both with your faculty as well as other students here.
I think that's a great answer. I don't know if either of you consider PhD programs at all. I personally was not at that stage where I wanted to immediately be applying to one. I know some people who try to go into one like straight out of undergrad, like before doing a master's, but I would say that factors that can help you decide between an MPH versus a PhD is if it's a relatively new field to you. I think it's really nice to kind of only be locked into a shorter program to make sure this is something you're really interested in, to get like kind of an intro into like all of the coursework that you would be taking in a PhD. A lot of times there is some overlap like in the coursework anyway, so you'll be taking like the first few classes or at least be getting the foundation for what you would be doing in a PhD anyways. Um, so I think it really just depends where you are in your life and like what specifically you're looking at between the master's versus the PhD. It's so particular that I would honestly suggest talking to like an advisor if you're still in school, or if there are specific like master's or PhD programs that you're looking here at Chan or at other schools. I would talk with like admissions about like the granularities of those programs and deciding whether it's best for you. Because it just depends, I think, so much on like your current like career experience, what you did in undergrad, things like that.
Yeah, I also was not considering a PhD when applying for my master's. I think they're just very, or for the field I'm in, which is healthcare management, it's like a very different experience to get a PhD in like healthcare management, which I'm not really sure what that like if that intersection really exists because the PhDs are more research based. You have like organization science PhD like faculty members and such, but for my degree, a master's just made more sense essentially. And I wasn't really interested in returning to research as like a professional career. So I wanted to go more into management, more into like organization science than research, which is why I did a master's instead of a PhD.
I really don't have an answer to that question because I haven't considered. Uh,
Yeah,
and I'm also not an MPH student, so well, I guess my
yeah.
experience kind of differs. But the next question is what's the class size within each degree program? It varies significantly. Certain degree programs have smaller cohorts, while others have pretty large cohorts. For instance, my degree program, GHB, my year has approximately 17 students. So it's very tight knit. Everyone knows each other. I don't know. What about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, my class size for the health management 65 program, which is the year and a half program, there's about 17 or 18 of us in my current cohort. I know this year's cohort has about 20-ish. And then there's also a 1 year cohort, which is the 45. I'm not actually too sure what the number for that cohort is, but I would imagine it's also around 20, 15 to 20. But we are usually separated by like in the MPH, we're separated by like 45 versus 65, and then like your concentration just for like cohort purposes. Obviously, we're not like physically separated, and you meet a lot of people from other cohorts, but just for like cohort purposes, that's how we're like divided.
Yeah, I know you were specifically asking about health data science biostats. Biostats is about 27 my year. I think that's about how big it is this year too. And that includes the SM60, SM80, and the SM45. Health data science is a little smaller. I think it's about 20 people. But like Jennifer was saying, just because that's how big your cohort is doesn't mean that's how big your class sizes will be, because there's a lot of overlap with who you take classes with and your required courses. So I would say like the actual classes that you're in can range anywhere from like 20 people to like 75 people. And it just depends on if it's like a class that's required for a lot of different programs versus like an elective class that you're taking that has a smaller like cap size. So yeah, I would say like a lot of electives are like on the smaller end of like 20-ish people or less, but yeah, they can be larger as well.
Um, this next question is for me, so I can go ahead and answer it. Uh, I guess one standout experience that has been really enriching to me was that I've earlier this summer I've had the privilege to work under a professor in the global health and population department, Dr. Aisha Yousafzai, on a project on early childhood development in Lebanon. It was really an incredible opportunity to see how work in global health is being conducted across, outside of the United States, and to understand like the practical challenges that are faced by, these vulnerable populations, but also like the research team. Um, this both this experience was both professionally and personally significant for me, given my background as a Syrian refugee. It not only deepened my skills in qualitative research, but it also directly informed my like master's thesis, which will further explore the gaps that I researched over the summer. And I want to say that like a lot of these opportunities that people like embark on, you would have to, I guess, like um, put yourself out there. Like they're not gonna come to you. Um, it's not something that I was introduced to, but it's something that I had to, research myself and research the faculty and reach out to the faculty and ask them for any opportunities, any research opportunities, if they're available. But yeah, I'd highly recommend this type of like hands-on research experience to future students interested in global health and population, and or just in general interested in research. I think you should, yeah, reach out to faculty, do your research. Don't wait for the opportunities to come to you. Hope that was helpful.
And the next one we got was about financing your education here, what financial resources are available. or is it up to each student to figure out? And I think another person asked about financial aid and how common it is. I think it might depend on the department a little bit, because I know within my department, funding that we get is kind of allocated to the department, and then it's up to them to decide within the applicant pool if they decide to accept like who gets what amount of money, and then you can try to negotiate like a little bit with your department head. So like admissions itself is usually like not the ones that you would ask about financial aid, because it's more like dependent on your actual department. I know a lot of people that get like some funding, but I would say that like for the most part here at Chan and at a lot of graduate schools, it's hard to get like good solid funding for a master's degree. It's something that they usually just tell you you have to make an investment in, which is like a hard truth to deal with a little bit because it's so expensive. But I think it is something that it just depends a lot on your like personal financial circumstances, and I think like your competitiveness as an applicant and like what potential opportunities you could be considered for, because there are like Harvard-Chan-wide funding opportunities that you don't really even have to apply for. You're just like considered kind of as you are considered for your application. And it just depends if you fit the requirements for them. I don't know if you have other thoughts.
Yeah, there are definitely some resources available on campus. I'd highly suggest that you guys reach out to the financial aid office for some guidance on like scholarships, like grants and loan options that are they're very approachable. You can always schedule like a meeting with them to talk about this. And there's like already staff dedicated to helping students and understanding their option, and outside of admission, it's kind of like outside of our scope of like validation. But that being said, like students also do need to be proactive. It's really, really essential that you research and apply to external scholarships like fellowships and other funding sources early on, because it's very, very limited and very, very, very competitive. So while resources and support are available, it's up to each student to actively like seek out and leverage them to secure the best possible funding for your education. So yeah. I can leave the next question. Can first year master students apply CPT and work as part-time interns outside of Harvard? Sorry, forgot to finish this question. Outside of Harvard as early as the first and second semester. I don't think that's something that we can answer. This is something you might have to reach out to the registrar's office for. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it depends on the program, and usually they're pretty accommodating, but it really depends. Like it's very program specific. You'd have to talk with your faculty about it, and it's not something that we can answer, and we don't want to like provide guarantees because it's very dependent on faculty and program. This next one, what would you say is the greatest skill that you gain from TH Chan? Is it something in common with other students, or is it more specific to each student depending on their interests? I would definitely say it's very dependent on each student, especially because we're all coming from different backgrounds with different strengths and different like training. So what you get from the program is really like what you make of it. You get to pick all of your electives. Of course, there's like core classes that you have to take, but then after that, everyone kind of branches out. Like it's pretty common to be like in a class and be the only person from your department in it if you're like in an elective that you're interested in that, but maybe it's not in your department. So it's really what you make of it. I would say that the classes here do emphasize like in-class participation, so kind of teaching you to think on your feet and like be able to craft a response to things on the fly is a really important skill that a lot of people develop here. Being comfortable like giving presentations and public speaking, I feel like is another skill that especially the health management cohort emphasizes. So it really depends on the program once again, and it depends on what you want to get out of it. The faculty here, like I mentioned, are very invested in all of us as people, and the courses are all designed to like fill gaps that you feel that you have in your training. It's all really just designed to like best position you for re-entering the professional world as like a very polished and well-rounded early career professional.
I agree with Jennifer. Um, on a personal level, I'd say the greatest skill I've gained at Harvard is the ability to think critically and adapt to um, solutions solutions to complex like global health challenges. And I guess like the skill that I'm talking about is program dependent. I don't know. Mine, yeah. Um, it's really tailored by each student's specific interests and experiences. So, um, for instance, like while some of my friends have on campus have honed their quantitative analysis skills, my focus has been more on like qualitative research and trauma-informed interventions. But regardless of specialization, Harvard pushes every student to become a more adaptive and analytical thinker. When approaching public health issues, yeah, holistically. So maybe we can move on to the next question. I saw on the Harvard website that there are a lot of different research centers. Are any of you involved in a research center or can speak to that experience? Anyone want to go first?
I'm not at a research center. I work for Brigham and Women's, which I think would be like a different experience compared to working at a research center. But getting involved in research in general, I would say like as long as you want to do it, you'll be able to find some way to do it here. There are so many opportunities, especially because of like the really wide array of hospitals that we have at kind of our disposal, I guess. But even within Harvard Chan, every professor is so open to having you come on and work with them or referring you to someone who may have like more availability or um, like potential for you to join their team if they don't have room to take on another student at that time. So uh, like research in general, like as long as you put forward a little bit of initiative, because I think like at Harvard in general, you kind of have to advocate for yourself. There's so many opportunities, but you're like a little fish in a big pond, I would say for sure. Like you have to like decide what is the best path for you in terms of like the opportunities that you decide to take advantage of, and like put the work in to like make sure you have time to balance that between your school and extracurricular activities. That's kind of my answer to the last question and this question is like learned a lot of like balance and um, how to take advantage of everything that we have available to us here.
Yeah, I'm also not involved with the research center at Harvard specifically. Um, but I worked at a research center for my practicum over the summer, but they're not Harvard affiliated, so I'm not sure if this question is specifically for the Harvard research centers. But I can just speak a little bit about the work that I did. It was mostly like literature review and then synthesizing information to like provide actionable insights on policy recommendations for immigrant health and wellness or mental health and wellness. So it was very much like individual research work. And I think a lot of the research opportunities through Harvard are also very like remote independent work with like maybe a few meetings here and there. So um, just something to keep in mind if that's something you're interested in.
Same here. I really can't add much to the conversation. What advice would you give to someone applying in this cycle? Any tips on making the application and statement of purpose stand out? And how far in advance did you start preparing this application? Well, I want to preface this by saying that as admissions ambassadors, our primary role is to like share experiences as students, so we can't directly like validate application materials. However, in terms of like general advice based on my personal experience, I would recommend starting the application process early. Allow for time for more reflection, revision, and feedback on your material if you're receiving any external like feedbacks from advisors. But when it comes to your statement of purpose, I'd say articulate your passion for public health, your interest, your specific interest, and how the program that you're choosing to apply to aligns with your career goals. So be specific about your experience and highlight what makes you unique for Harvard. And if there's any faculty members that you want to work with or research centers that align with your interests, make sure to like mention those, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing that I added to my personal, also just like the caveat that we don't actually like see your application, so our tips are not like the office of admission. Like we do not speak for the office of admissions. This is our personal experience for the application cycle, so just keep that in mind. But one thing that I added on top of everything that Sham just said is that I kind of I kind of explained why I wanted to get the degree that I'm getting and how I would use that in my professional career later on. Again, personal advice, not sure if that's like what made my application stand out or be accepted. So yeah, this question is just like everything we say to it is all personal advice and not anything from the office of admissions specifically.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think really the most important thing is being super specific, like why that program, why right now in this like point in your life is it the best time for you to get this degree, versus like later or early. Like I think it's just really important to consider like everything that this degree has to offer or Chan has to offer in general and really like articulate that and make it like stand out compared to like a general application that you would see for any school. So like this applies for like all of your graduate applications, like really make them catered to the program. Like Sham said, you can like even mention specific professors or research centers that you're interested in. I think that'd be a great idea. And then this is also a school of public health. So even if you're applying to a quantitative field, you have to like express some kind of reasoning for why you want to be like in a school of public health specifically versus like any other graduate school. So I would express like why you're passionate about working in public health if you are even in a quantitative field like biostats. Because I think some people like didn't really have a good reason coming in, but it will really make your application stronger if you express that you're really interested in applying what you learn to some type of health field.
And make sure you're reading everything that they're and submitting everything that they're asking for. Yeah, so that your application doesn't get discarded in case there's like something small that's missing. It happens a lot, but yeah. The next question is what are ways you manage stress and find balance between classes, research, and other personal commitments? I can go ahead and start with that, but my first semester at Chan was definitely my most challenging semester here. Especially when it came to balancing core courses like epidemiology and biostatistics with other research and academic commitments. The coursework was definitely rigorous and it took some time for me to adapt to the fast pacing of those classes. And in terms of managing stress and maintaining a balance, I definitely struggled with that my first semester. But there are some resources on campus that will help you like adopt like strategies that will help you throughout your first semester. For me, when I did seek those resources, I was able to like create a structured schedule for myself. Like I mapped out my week in advance, setting like specific times for studying, research, and personal activities, just to stay organized and on top of things. I took breaks throughout the day, like walking breaks or short mindfulness like exercises just to clear my mind from the courses, because they are very, very, very much like time consuming. They'll take up like a lot of your days, even weekends. And it's easy to get caught up in the fast pace of like the coursework, but yeah, just taking breaks really helped me from like burning out, and reaching out to like other students in my classes, and bonding with them and just going through this whole experience together, just made my coursework more manageable and created a sense of like community. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. That's like my biggest like tip when you're on campus. Everyone's going through the same thing, and so instead of going through it alone, just it makes a huge difference when yeah, when other people can be there for you and have gone through the same experiences. So yeah.
I agree. I think a lot of people will be feeling exactly the same way you're feeling in terms of like burden with classes and things outside of classes. So take advantage of that. Like form a community within your classes, because it makes it more bearable to be working on school a lot of the time if you're working on it with other people. So it can kind of be like a mix of getting some social interaction with it, and you're not just kind of constantly working alone. And I think another thing is, I mentioned earlier that Harvard is going to have so many opportunities that you'll really want to take advantage of, but be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. Like as soon as you get here, like try to acclimate yourself with your coursework first and foremost, because that should be your priority while you're here and paying to be here taking classes. And then start to add on top of that once you get more used to like the how much time you have to dedicate towards your classes, to add on things like work if you want to be working as well, or like putting time into other things like research.
Yeah. And I'm just going to answer this other question that I saw here at the bottom along with this, which was how's the MPH course load? Do you/other students feel like there's time to rest? I would say the MPH cohort is definitely like, or the MPH classes are definitely very like similarly structured to each other. It's typically, so we have 8 week long classes, and it's typically like 4 weeks and then a midterm assignment or paper or project. Very rarely are there exams, especially in in the MPH cohort. It's typically more of a take home written exam or paper or project, and then like a final assignment usually. The only class that we really have exams for, I think some of the nutrition classes have exams, and also the biostats class that's required of everyone in the MPH cohort has exams, which are like in class exams that are timed. But I would say the MPH coursework is definitely, I think, a little bit more chill than the Masters of Science coursework. It's typically reading and a couple of assignments here and there, but I would say like perhaps average a week, like a class would maybe be like, for me, I usually do like 2 to 4 hours per class, depending on the week. It's usually closer to 2 than 4. And then like on midterm and final weeks, obviously a lot more time is invested in those courses. And then that's just up to you to be able to balance final assignments and deadlines and all that. But I would say there's definitely time to rest. The core schedule is also typically twice a week, and it's like 3 hours a week, so 1.5 hours per class. And it's pretty easy to not have class on Fridays. Like I've never had a class on Friday since I've come to Chan. And so it's kind of nice to have a 3 day weekend. And it's also nice to have a day off where you can like do work, catch up on stuff, do like work that you're doing outside of Chan, etc. So I would say it's definitely like for me pretty has been pretty easy to balance the MPH coursework. I did come from a so I did my undergrad at Berkeley, and it was like a STEM it's a STEM biology infectious diseases like degree. So I will say that's the caveat of like the rigor of that program was very high. So I never know if it's an artifact of that being my background versus like the course load is actually more chill. But I would say definitely like just from observing my peers as well, like it's very manageable. People have time to do hobbies. We have like a pickleball group that tries to meet every week, just like in my friend group, and like people are out hanging out on the weekends and everything. So I would say it's definitely manageable. And things that I do to help manage stress. I've been like I like to craft, so I knit, I do art, I paint. So I have a lot of hobbies that I keep on top of. And then also hanging out with people in the cohort. It's nice to like go out when it's nice out on the weekends and see people going for walks. Boston's a very walkable city. So
And I want to add on, there's also a lot of like opportunities where um um events on campus will be held in like nearby like food restaurants, and it will be fully like paid for, so take advantage of that and socialize with people. It's really good food, and it's free. So yeah, I think that's the first time. No, actually, that wasn't the first time me and Jennifer met, but we bonded during those
definitely.
events. The next question is, were there ever any communication challenges with thesis/dissertation advisors that you had to overcome? I'm honestly just starting my like thesis like process. Most people embark on that like during their second or most masters of science students like begin their thesis in their second year of at Chan. You're not allowed to complete it before. Um, but I have yet to like come across any communication challenges, but I um I do want to stress like the importance of being open and transparent with your like advisors or your readers. Um if you're facing any difficulties pertaining to your thesis, or if you're struggling with like data analysis or just balancing like thesis work in general with other commitment, just share these concerns like honestly, and your advisors will help you, and they're very understanding. They will understand your perspective, and like they'll help you and provide you with more tailored like support. Um and be consistent in your communication. Like um don't ghost your advisors or don't respond like days later. Maintain like regular check-ins between like meetings, and share updates, even if they were brief. It's just really helpful for them to, if you want them to stay on track with your work, because again, they're all balancing like multiple hundreds of things besides being like advisors and faculty and even professors on campus. So yeah, keep the momentum going and address things promptly.
I'm working on my thesis right now, and a lot of my like classmates are also pretty much only working on their thesis in this last semester. So, I mean, it completely depends on the advisor what types of communication problems will come up. But like Shom said, the caveat of working with really esteemed people in their careers is that they are super busy. And so I think communicate with them the same type of way you want them to communicate with you, be like timely in your responses and respectful. And something we're always told is to never like overcommit to something and then find that you don't have enough time for it. So like I think you will avoid a lot of issues with communication or like workload burden and not being able to meet timelines or deadlines if you set up expectations early on and communicate like what kind of bandwidth you have and what expectations there are of you as you join their lab or start the research with them. And since we have like 14 minutes left, if it's like a question that we've kind of answered already, or if it's more like a smaller question that might not apply to as many people, we might just type an answer. So keep that in mind if you put a question and we might just respond to you in a Q&A chat instead of out loud here.
I see a question on the first generation mentorship program. The student wants me to talk more about it, and that they're interested in the resources available on campus. And I'm sure Sarah can like add on to this because she's also a first gen mentor. But as a first gen student myself, like I understand how navigating a new environment academic specifically can be both exciting and like overwhelming. But the program that I'm talking about, the first gen program, was recently launched. So I wasn't a part of it last year, but I am a mentor in the program this year. Yeah, we just like pair first gen students with mentors who have been through who are mentors who are first years or second year students at Chan. And it's mainly open to students in the Masters of Science program and MS or students who won't be there for like 1 year is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I've worked with students to help them adjust to like grad school or like offer any new advice on everything from like managing the coursework and the load to finding resources for like personal and professional development. We host several workshops and events on campus that address like and navigate certain challenges that students may experience on campus. Yeah, just the whole purpose of like the session and the program is to provide like practical tips and like foster a supportive network among first generation students. Yeah, do you have anything to say, Sarah, to add on?
No. That was good.
Highly suggest you guys, if you're interested and if you're a first gen student, to reach out to me and I can connect you with the right resource to get more information on the program.
Yeah. The director is super invested in the program, and so I think it'll only continue to be like a stronger and like even better opportunity as it continues on in future years. I feel like this is pretty general. What are some things you wish you knew when you were applying or before you started grad school in general? I don't know if this is like a great answer. I wish I didn't apply to so many schools. I think take time early on now before you send in your applications to decide like realistically, like, is this a place you would even want to live? Realistically, like, is this program even containing like everything you really are interested in? So I think I did a lot of my research like after I got my admissions instead of before when I was doing my applications. And I wish I had saved those hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the ones that I got the admission decision back. And I was like, I don't really even know why I applied here. But it's hard when you're like first gen. It feels like you need to just make sure you have like safety options or like a lot of options. But I think it's so much more valuable to put your time into making sure it's the right program for you and making sure you have a really strong application and then going from there. That's my main advice, which hopefully you're not in that position anyways, but if you are, I don't know, maybe think again about like how many applications you're doing and if you really are 100% invested in all of them.
Someone asked if there's time to do internships between semesters, what would be the best time to applying for those opportunities? And also wondering when to start job search for a 1 year or 1.5 year program in order to get a job before or right after graduation. Yeah, there is lots of time to pursue an internship between semesters, especially during the summer, which is often the best opportunity to gain hands-on like experience and apply for internship that you might be using like towards your practicum or thesis. And yeah, so if you're in a 1.5 year program or two, I would say maximizing the summer is key since the program timeline is relatively short. You can also take like J-term internships. There's a lot of like opportunities for that on campus, where you can even like travel abroad and get stipends for that. It's best to start early. Again, a lot of these opportunities are competitive. So maybe around like December to February for summer positions. You know, that may seem early to you guys, since it's like during break time. And but yeah, many public health like organizations like and NGOs and research centers have like application deadlines during this period, and learn from me and my mistake. So start early. Yeah, and have a clear sense of your goals and target the organizations that you really want to work on, or that you want to work with. As for job search, start early as well. Typically around like the fall of like, if you're a second year student, I would say, sorry, if you're in a 2 year program, I would say like start in the fall. But if you're in a 1.5 year program, maybe in May. Do you guys want to add on to that? Since you guys.
Totally agree. I think biggest advice is definitely start early, definitely in the fall or earlier. I think it's super common in my program and a lot of programs to do internships between semesters. And if you have the ability to choose between internships at all, or if you are trying to narrow down which ones you're applying to, I think with the current job market, I would definitely advise like prioritizing ones that like to give return offers because it adds so much security and takes away so much stress when you're wrapping up in your second year or your last semester. You already know you've got something locked down, or even just making sure that that is like an area that you're interested in, like whatever industry you are going into. The internship is such a great chance, like in between semesters, to make sure that what you're doing is actually the right fit for you.
There's one question about campus culture and life. Do you guys want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think we can talk a little bit about like I see grad student life, campus culture life. There's a question about food that I typed a response to, and like the international student community. So we can talk a little bit about campus culture. I would say there's a lot of international students, by the way. There's a very strong international student community here. So it's really cool. And there's like different student organizations as well for international students. And I would say campus culture is really fun. Everyone's really cool and really like bringing in different things from the backgrounds and different walks of life. We have medical students, medical doctors, like mid-career professionals, late career professionals. Someone in like one of my classes was like a speechwriter for Obama at one point in her career. Yeah, so everyone's really cool. Everyone's really nice. It's a public health school, and with that comes like the like passion for health that everyone brings. So it is very like a welcoming community. I've had questions in the past about if people are competitive, and I would say not at all. Like everyone's very happy to network, share opportunities, and um, I would say in my cohort, everyone like builds each other up and empowers each other rather than trying to compete with each other. Especially because we all recognize that we all have different career interests and different backgrounds and different skills. So I've loved my time here, like socially at Harvard Chan, and I think there's a space for everyone on the campus. So if anyone wants to add anything.
Yeah. There's a huge focus on well-being on campus. Um, Specifically like mental health. There's lots of resources and mindful sessions. to regular like social events that bring students together. Like for finals week, we have like coffee breaks, so you can get free coffee and just relax and socialize with people. We also host uh forgetting what it's called, but there was like international night, right? Was it international night? Where people from like different backgrounds like um got together and performed, um, showed off their talents. Oops. Um, uh, yeah. And if you guys want to add on, let me know.
I did see a question about like grad student life versus undergrad life. And I I don't know. I I think it's a little bit different. Well, for my
Yeah.
program, you have to be like 2 years out of undergrad to even apply because we have required 2 years working experience. I would say it's definitely like there's still a lot of stuff to do on campus, but with like the turnaround time of the master's programs, it's like 1.5 to 2 years or 1 to 2 years. I would say like the student organizations are a little bit less like robust than like an undergrad campus where like the organization has been around for like 20 years and has like a student body that's been or like a governing body that's been in power for like 2-ish years. Here it's kind of like if you're interested in something and there's like other people that are interested, it's pretty easy to start a club, but I think it can be hard to find people to like continue the organization. I
Yeah.
think people typically kind of find their groups and then like do independent or group hangouts, like not school sanctioned hangouts, I guess, if that makes sense. But I would say it's definitely like a very strong culture, um, and like very similar to undergrad in terms of like you're meeting a lot of people through classes, you're meeting a lot of people on campus. It is a bit of a smaller campus, so the faces you see on campus are pretty familiar after a while. So it's definitely like a very tight-knit community, I would say.
Um, and I guess to add on to that, like the coursework is more specialized and aligned with your career goals. Um, Another big difference is the level of like independence. While in undergrad, you're often provided more structured guidance. Like grad school is a place where they hold like greater emphasis on like self-directed learning and research. So, um, yeah, you'll need to manage your own schedule and set priorities and drive your own projects forward. Um, it can be both like liberating and challenging because you'll have more control over your academic journey, but also more responsibility. So, um, yeah, build you're also able to build a more professional network and engage with like people who have the same academic and career interests as you. Um, yeah, that's all I can think of.
Sorry, we're rushing answers a little bit. I don't think we'll get through everything, but we will drop our emails in the chat. Or I don't know if you guys want to. If you need to follow up with anything or want to follow up with anything, we're happy to answer questions over email. And the Office of Admissions is always available to set up like a one-on-one with someone that's from the admissions office if you have questions that we were not able to answer as well. Like we said, we don't know much about the actual admissions process or application process, just what we personally experience as students. So direct any questions, we recommend directing any questions to the actual admissions office if it's related to that.
And since it's time, I guess it's best for us to just send out our emails in the chat box and just give people a little moment to copy everything down. Um, yeah. Research everything, know exactly what you're talking about. Um,
I dropped a Calendly link too because I do host like office hours by appointment for prospective students.
Okay. We'll give it another minute maybe, and then hope you guys found this session helpful.
Yeah. And any questions that you have that are like program specific, I think there are most programs have like people you can reach out to with questions about the program. We only represent like 3 programs, and then even within the MPH, I'm only in health management. So if you have any like very program specific questions, definitely reach out, and they're pretty responsive. Thanks
Yeah.
for showing up, everyone.
Thank you.